Cynicism is just another form of cowardice. For our sergeant are not interested in a midlife crisis. We were to do our freaking work.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 14 of the Spotlight Podcast, Success Stories for Veterans, where it is our job to break down and analyze titans in both the civilian and military communities to discover their tactics, their mindset, and their systems so that you can take those and apply them to your life and ultimately your transition. These titans range from New York Times bestselling authors to former heads of state to other divergent thinkers who are dominating their field by challenging conventional wisdom. And today we have with us Rich Cardona. Now, Rich is a retired Marine Corps aviator who went the traditional job route after leaving the Marines. And while he was successful at that, Rich ultimately decided that that was very unfulfilling, and he knew he was destined for something more. So he decided to leave a situation and a workplace that most people dream of and strike out on his own. And now he has worked with companies like VaynerX, BunkerLabs, and Smart Passive Income. These are all titans within their own right. So how did Rich do it? Listen and find out. Rich, thanks for joining me.
Yes. Thrilled to be here.
I'm glad. So you are a video strategist.
Yeah.
Is that an accurate way to sum that up?
I don't know, man. Okay. Let's just start with I don't know. You know Shay Rowbottom. Anyone who follows Shay Rowbottom on LinkedIn, she's a friend of mine, and I talked to her recently, and she's like, video strategist could mean a lot of things. So she was challenging me, which is great because I have informal mentors out there, and she's just like, that could mean you go in and school up executives on video. I'm like, I never really thought of it like that. So she was getting to a point that I frequently make is, if you confuse, you lose. But anyway, to answer your question without circling all the way back around to taking too long to do that. Yeah, I'm a video strategist. I help people strategically use an approach in which video is going to benefit them, their business, or their personal brand.
So can you walk me through a day in the life of what that looks like?
So this looks clean right here, but it's a mess. I actually was just trying to post something about how how organized and rigid and structured Marines have to be, and how that will help you with your success. And I'm now at the point where, as a business owner and a creative, dare I say, as you are, that some of that stuff is just like it's better done than perfect. So I'm kind of past the perfection. So, when it comes to a day in the life, many of them, as hard as I try, are not routine. The only routine part of what I do on a day-to-day basis is make sure I do something physically fit, because I'm afraid of being fat, So like, that's that, man. I mean, like, I want to look like I was a Marine. Like, I have this unbelievable fear. But other than that, I mean, I don't do a ton of prospecting. I do a ton of relationship building. And that sounds so cliche. Oh, well, building relationships, and it's super freaking fluffy and whatever. It's not, man. Like, I really have invested in people to the point where this week is literally like my business doubled this week from my first year. Like, out of nowhere, nice. referral, someone I did business with recently, someone I was involved with BunkerLabs or whatever. So a day in the life, I'm not sure, but I don't prospect. I'll tell you that much. I do focus on building relationships. I wanted to hit you up right before this and be like, dude, I don't know, because my computer issue. Yeah. Like, but we just do it, because at least there's the effort, right? Like, you might, I don't know, you might have been like, dude, what a mistake thinking I should have this guy on the podcast. So prospecting is something I don't normally do. I relationship build. The other thing I do is feverishly make sure that I'm posting content. And in order to try and make original content, I will say this. For my clients, I help them prepare a content calendar, ideas. I help them batch content, but I don't do that myself, which is ridiculous, right? Like, I should be doing what I preach. But I mean, I could go on a walk right now and something will hit me, and I'm like, I'm just going to post that. Yeah. And then, sorry, well, the last thing about, kind of the non-day-to-day is I have a board over here, and it says, where's my money?
Yeah.
And that board is literally there to make sure that, I have an idea of the directions I want to go and people I want to talk to and the industries they may occupy. Where's my money is one of the most important things I've done in the last couple months. Just because if you are not like explicitly focusing on driving the business in one way or another, or obviously, as business people, so to speak, cutting expenses, which I did today. I no longer have a business coach as of like 5 hours ago. Then you're just kind of playing around.
Yeah. Pretending at business.
Playing business, man. I mean, it's no joke out here.
So all of that said, you've clearly gotten a lot of knowledge, but at one point you were a Marine. Talk to me about getting out of the Marine Corps to where you are now.
Okay. This is so unbelievably important for people to listen to. And I really hope this provides value to your audience. I did not go to 20 years because I was going to be 35. And if I got out at 20 years, I would have been 38, almost 39. And I was afraid that at 40-ish years old, I was going to be unmarketable. Like old geezer Marine who's beaten down, who's had to do physical fitness as part of his job for the last 20 years, who's been to combat, who's led and all this other. I felt my gut feeling was no one's going to care. So I had an opportunity for early retirement. I took that. And then to kind of exacerbate that fear, I went and got an MBA. I got an MBA from a private school, and I did so because, again, I didn't feel like I was going to be marketable. I'm like, if I don't have that piece of paper, no one's going to take me freaking seriously. So I did that, and that landed me at a job that I absolutely hated for 2 years, and then I quit. And then I moved in with my in-laws. So what I want to draw down on a little bit is that sounds like desperation. Yeah. But here's the hard truth. I was unbelievably prepared to transition in my eyes. I'd done everything right. I went to every networking, everything. I did extra transition courses out in town. I haven't said that forever. Like in Oceanside with CTAP, who's amazing. I did, coffee meetings. I mean, everything. All these heavy hitters nowadays, I knew them when they were nothing, like running all these like transition companies and veteran mentoring platforms. All of them. I knew all of them, and I did everything. And I did core down at Deloitte. I did everything. And you know what? I would put resumes out. I had people review my resumes. I did everything, and it was crickets. It was absolutely crickets. And look, man.
Do you have any idea of like how many crickets? Because I've talked to veterans who've put out like 350 resumes to one callback.
No, I feel like even though the world is big, I feel like it's still small, and that like you could just pepper too many people in so many different circles. Because inevitably, people listening to this are going to reach out to a military person at that company, right? Mm-hmm. So idea wise, I don't know, man, like maybe 16 places. Okay. And it sounds small, but I was really trying to be ultra targeted. And then let me rewind. It's probably more like 25 to 30. Mm-hmm. And it was 16 initially. And I was like, not hearing anything. And don't get me wrong. I wasn't applying to be like a fucking VP somewhere. Yeah. I was just applying for good senior leadership roles. And my number got to 25, 30 because I was just trying to put out anything I could get. And that led me to some ridiculous regional sales consultancy job in which it was just an unbelievable lack of integrity. I hated what I was doing. And then I went on to, it doesn't matter. I went on to Amazon, and that sucked hardcore for me. But ultimately, that whole crappy path that I just told you about was not out of laziness. It was not out of a lack of focus. It was purely a byproduct of the military transition. And you cannot shield yourself from some of the shit that you're going to see, period, point blank. It's just a huge change. It's like asking someone to go from the NFL into the NBA. Yeah. It's just difficult, period.
What was the biggest challenge besides the career component of it? What else did you experience?
Leadership gaps. That like, look, we're both Marines. I frequently tell my wife, who's an Army veteran, like, I'm never going to find another bull, or I'm never going to find another Colonel Moore, or whatever.
Yeah.
She's like, her experience was much different. She's like, well, there's some decent leaders in the Army. For me, I feel so fortunate and blessed. Even some of my friends who've passed away were incredible leaders, and they were peers, and I'm able to recognize that. But the gap in leadership is, to me, enormous from what we're used to and what we dealt with. I mean, dude, when I was a lieutenant, even as a captain, like, everyone hates majors, man. No one wants to be a major. Everyone hates majors. But I'd take a major any day. Like, once I was out, I was like, dude, I'd rather work for that guy again than this.
Yeah.
So that's largely important, because for me, that is part of my DNA, is to have that person to look up to aspire to be, but get there and put my own spin on it. There was no one in my immediate, near vision or sight that I wanted to be like. I thought it was just bullshit.
Yeah, you're just like, this fucking it. This is what it is.
Yeah. It was all, yeah, like this. Literally, this is it. And my financial advisor, because of where I was working, she's like, you have to stay. I'm like, I need out. She's like, you have to stay. She's like, just think, in 4 years, this much will vest. I'm like, all right. And then I did another year. So I got to 2 years. I'm like, I can't. Oh, well. I've never been happier.
So how did that manifest itself when you're dealing with a scenario where there's nobody around you that you want to emulate? How did you get out of that sticky scenario?
I'm going to give you two. I've been thinking about this all day. It's amazing that you asked that question. The first thing I did was I was obsessive about work. I was desperate to be seen, and I was unbelievably confident that I was a better leader than everyone around me. I proved it on multiple occasions by virtue of having the capacity for emotional intelligence and technical prowess. Okay. So it was like, I could do both these things. I also know how to lead, and I also know how to get my hands dirty. Like, I literally did a lot of the warehouse blue collar work alongside the hourly associates who were making dog shit, because it made my day a lot better, and it actually taught them something about me. Not to mention, I would be able to give them little tidbits about what is going on in this enormous warehouse, and you're not just packing a box. I would try and put that spin on it. So that's number one. That's how I kind of helped mitigate it, so to speak. And the other way I tried to mitigate it and failed miserably was by just turning to my own devices. Dude, I drank. I was taking major risks at work. I mean, I was so distant from my family. I mean, dude, the last thing I would see at night was my computer screen. The first thing I would see in the morning is my computer screen. I was on a night schedule. There was times I didn't even see my daughter for 48 hours. And that wasn't by choice, but I actually, looking back, I've said that so many times on podcasts, but I didn't do anything about it. Like, I was just like, this is part of it. And man, I was so unbelievably distant from who I knew myself to be that I thought I could work my way out of it. And when I wasn't working my way out of it, I thought I could drink my way out of it. And it was fucking awful.
So talk to me then about the balance, because it seems like you've moved back towards a balance. How do you put work in context now versus back then?
This work is work I absolutely love. And I have to be honest, like, I'm working more hours probably, but I'm building a business. There is no mission, vision, and values, right? It's not there for you. I'm not there, trying to support this business's mission and carry out this and execute. Like, I have to figure out what needs to be executed on a daily basis or on a quarterly basis, yearly basis. So, I'm working more, but I love it. I don't wake up and I'm just like, I don't want to play today. Like, I always want to play. I'm always ready. I love it. I can't imagine not being busy. And I ask myself, dude, I'm so happy you asked that. I dropped my wife off at the airport this morning. She went on a business trip, and I was thinking to myself, do I work a lot because I still am like weird about my family because I have a newborn now, you know, so I have 2 kids and like the house is crazy. And I'm like, am I avoiding something? And the answer is no, absolutely not. I'm not trying to compensate, and I'm not trying to not spend time with my family either. The balance is way better, but I still work extremely hard, and I've overcome that by I don't know how to say this. I'm unemployable. You know, like, dude, I just, that's it. Like, this is plan A and this is plan B, and that's it. Like, there's no turning back. And because of that, though, great things are happening. But I'm not going back to work for anybody.
And it's funny that you say that, because almost all of my podcast guests think that exact same thing, that it's more dangerous to feel the security of working for somebody else, which that security is actually fake, in my opinion.
Yes. Yep.
They have that turning point, but there's always a point. Do you have a moment that you go back to and you're like, yeah, that was the moment I realized that I was unemployable?
Yeah. I think there's a couple actually, and it's while I've been an entrepreneur, as a matter of fact. It's when people hired us on. Now, look, I just want to preface this with, I understand client and vendor relationships, you know, and you know, like who's hired who and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But you know, I kind of teamed up with a couple people, and I wouldn't say as a partnership. I was getting paid as a vendor, but the amount of things that they needed, to me, was just unnecessary. And it just kind of demonstrated to me that we were not peers, so to speak.
Yeah.
If you come to me because you need video content, Carson, I'm the fucking doctor, right? Like, you don't come in and tell me what's wrong. Like, I'm going to tell you your LinkedIn is garbage, or this podcast, whatever. I'm going to tell you these things, obviously in a good way, and determine if I can help you or not.
Yeah.
But like, you can't come in and tell me how it is. So when people hire me and then tell me all the things to do, it's just like, that's when I kind of knew I was unemployable, because I know I could get out of that. I could be like, hey man, this isn't working.
Yeah.
You know, I've done it plenty of times. I mean, plenty of times. But I also, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying there aren't good people out there that I couldn't work for or anything like that. But I just knew then that my way is too unorthodox and weird and me, that it has to be my own. And people need to stay in their lane when it gets to that. And that's not narcissistic. I hope you and your audience understand that.
No, I actually completely agree, because I think one of the problems that I've been seeing is a lot of advice for veterans, specifically ambitious veterans, and it doesn't jive with us. And we wonder where that cognitive dissonance comes from, is that we're being asked to subordinate ourselves, or expect pay cuts, or expect title reductions, or expect this. And, you know, somebody's sitting there across from you in a job interview with a copy of the military pay chart, and they'll say, hey, we'll give you your base pay, but we're not giving you any of the additional stuff. And oh, by the way, you lose all the benefits. I mean, how would you recommend, if you are an ambitious veteran and maybe you do still need to work for other people, how would you recommend walking into that scenario as a peer, as opposed to that subordinate role?
First, I want to just say thank you, man. Like, that is a point that needs to be talked about often, you know, and deeply. Like, it is so fucking important that people understand that kind of thing actually happens. For expectation management, veterans need to understand that makes that happen. That happens. And if you are, you know, now I'm not saying anything bad. All veterans are not created equal.
Yeah.
You know, so look, like, I've seen stuff on the outside also where I'm like, you are embarrassing us.
Yep.
You know, like, you are not what we're trying to do here. So you actually make a bad case for us. And I've had managers that were actually former military that worked around me that I'm just like, dude, you kidding me?
Yep.
So anyway, how do you do that? How do you approach that? How do you brace yourself? You can do one of two things. You can look into, you know, potentially running your own business, which I probably wouldn't suggest unless you have retirement like I did, you know, not off the bat. But the second, and obviously more applicable thing, is to really get your story straight. you and I could sit here all day and you could tell me about the things you do and I could tell you all about the things I do. But all we're really doing, and this is the biggest mistake veterans, this is the biggest mistake anyone makes. Everyone talks about their features.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone wants to know about the effect of what you're going to do. And the bottom line is you need to demonstrate unbelievably well in your interview process that you could either make them money or save them money. Period. The other thing you could do is, this is like, I don't want to call it a hack, but I love this move. Is try and get to know the person you're interviewing and connect with them on a level that gets them off paper, eyes off the paper and eyes into eyes. And then ask them, like, what is the worst thing about what you're dealing with right now? Because here's the thing. They might like it. They might not like it. I have a feeling they're going to like to talk about themselves because now it's about them and they get to just chill out for a second and just be like, well, here's a problem we got, you know? And if you are able to codify some sort of solution right then and there, and demonstrate that you have the aptitude to solve that problem and you don't even have the fucking job yet, like, game over. Like, game over. Now, depending on the culture and the company, they may be like, dude, we love Rich, but Carson's cheaper. Like, you know, and they might do that. But I'm telling you, if you do that for the right people, they're going to embrace it. So those are the options. That's how I think you could approach it.
Completely agree. And one of the things I hit on a lot, and other Titans who've been on this podcast have talked about, is the need to show, don't tell. And you know, everybody jumps right to the resume and the cover letter, which to me is an advanced form of telling. What are some interesting ways that you've seen people demonstrate, like actually demonstrate what they can do for somebody and put that in a package?
So I have a friend who literally was like, I am a whiteboarder. So he was in an interview and they asked him I believe this was a logistics job. And he literally just started walking the dog, you know, like on the whiteboard, which I promise you, because he's like, dude, I could tell that whiteboard's like never been used. He just recognized the opportunity, right? He recognized the opportunity. He played to his strengths and he's like, I'm just going to go above and beyond, because there's no way she's going to walk out of here and not be like, this dude just drew out the solution.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm not saying that's a possibility for every scenario here, but play to your strengths. So you have to know what you are dead good at and look for that door open, like that crack, you know, the door opening in your interview where you could just go ham on that. So that's one way. And that's what he did. And he got that job. Like, I mean, it wasn't even close. It was great. And he was, as a veteran would be, like, just worried he didn't have the actual traditional experience. Yeah. Another thing that you could do, I don't know. I have to think about it a little bit. I haven't talked to anyone who's been in an interview for a while, so I'm going to just defer to, I will get back to you on that one.
No, I actually think that that's good to hear, because to me, avoiding the interview process in general and the applicant tracking systems and the HR people who are just there to say no is the key, right? Yes. That is the flanking maneuver that most people just bang their head against the wall.
Yes.
And then wonder what the hell's going on. So
yeah,
as far as getting to know the people in those scenarios, and because you talked about the sitting down with that person and figuring out what's going on, how would you recommend an ambitious veteran approach that person for that conversation
prior to, like, an interview?
Yeah. Or maybe they're trying to frame information gathering to get themselves in an interview scenario.
So, you know, if you're trying to do it beforehand, I've always looked up everybody online who I've ever had to sit down with, if their name was available, and if they had an online profile, I was all up in it. You know, so here's a specific example. I know one person that was going to be interviewing me. I know she ran marathons, so I was like, mentioned, yeah, you know, I did training for this one. I was like, I didn't get to do the Triple Crown in SoCal last year, so I want to make sure I get it this year. It's like, oh, you know, then all of a sudden there's a little bit of an affinity, right?
Yep.
There's a little bit of a connection outside of, we are both stuck in this room for the next 30 minutes to an hour having to do our jobs. my job is to get a job and your job is to interview people to get a job. So if you could reduce that, that is a really good way. Now, while you're in the interview, it's difficult, man. Even some of the most personable people go into interviews taking them very seriously. So here's what I would say. That person, I think you'd agree with me on this, probably doesn't want to be there because they probably have they're interviewing you because they need people, which means if they need people, their best place to be is not in a fucking interview room interviewing someone. They actually want to be out there fixing stuff. So that's, again, leads me back to the point, like, what are you dealing with right now? Like, if you weren't in this interview, what would you be doing the second? What fire would you be putting out? And you will probably like just take the whole interview down to an amazing level of like, we're almost just equals, so to speak. And then maybe the titles of, or the positions that you each hold as the interviewee and the interviewer dissipate.
Yeah. Would it be fair to summarize that as saying something along the lines of you're humanizing that individual?
Of course, man. Like, no one wants to be intimidating to other people. I mean, some people like that, but I was like, unfortunately for my former company, I was like one of the easiest interviewers ever, but I also had no emotional attachment. Like, there's plenty of veterans I'm like, sorry, no way. But I mean, I just wanted to just look, man, like, not everyone's going to look at talent the way we look at talent. There's certainly an element of technical prowess that needs to exist, but talent is the main thing. So if you can show them that you're talented, especially if there's a gap in the skill set, so to speak. Obviously, one thing you could you could position yourself as is, look, like, I get it. This isn't my bag. I flew, or I was in logistics. Like, yeah, I didn't get to choose that, but I excelled there. So here's what I could tell you. I could help X, Y, and Z by X, Y, and Z. And this is what you'll see. Da, 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 da. And give them examples, whatever it is that you're prepared to give. And then you say, if I'm commensurate with my peers within 6 to 12 months, then I would really love to have another conversation and see what we could do. And then they're just like, this motherfucker's ambitious. Now, as you know, that also can go the wrong way. I was so ambitious when I got to where I was. They're like, who is this dude?
Yeah.
People hate it because they're threatened. So you have to like, you have to be, I hate to say this, you have to not scare everyone away too quick. Yeah. Right? Like, everyone, look, they don't have the confidence, they don't have the leadership, they don't have the XYZ that we do, but you could easily intimidate some people, no matter if they've been there 5 years or 10 years, and they could look at you like, oh my goodness, like, God, man, like, this dude's going to come in and just like crush it. So yeah, I mean, dude, we could go on forever about this, but that's how I would approach it. You gotta be diligent, but you gotta be careful.
So let's switch gears for a second, because you work with a lot of executives. That's obviously your target market, and people looking to tighten up their brand and establish themselves as experts.
Yep.
Those people that you're working with, I'm assuming, make hiring decisions.
Probably. Yeah.
What problems do you see them having time and time again?
That's a really good question. And one that I guess I have not thought of. Here's what I think. I could tell you the number one problem all my clients have is that they do not have what I need. Also right now is an air traffic controller, like literally who's like your OPSO, or who's like your XO. Like, these people believe in more people and less wages, because labor is always your most expensive expense.
Yep.
Then I'm going to hire an absolute killer project manager, or even more important from what I see is an executive assistant. And I'm going to tell you right now, I have an assistant. She's a military spouse. I flew with her husband in combat. Amazing dude. She has changed the course of my business by taking so much off of my plate, by allowing me to check my email once a day instead of 50 times a day.
Yeah.
I mean, it just goes on and on. But look, like, my coach, who I no longer have, is very big on like, you are not here for $10 tasks.
Mm-hmm.
You are here to do all the big things. So when it comes to the people that I work with, like the divide is too great between them and the workforce. Like there always needs to be someone, I mean, literally an XO like type person who will take over the squadron or the battalion or whatever if something happens to the CO. And that's what I think is the biggest gap with the people that I see, is that it's just too large of a difference. There's no one who's close enough to them in terms of talent and driving the business forward at the same time. And because of that, they're all in the same rut. And because of that, I'm trying to help humanize them so that more people want to work with and for them.
Yeah, that kind of that it's lonely at the top and it's crowded at the bottom scenario, but there's nobody.
It really is. It really is. Yeah, for sure.
So you've obviously developed a very different mindset. Now, some of that I think is the pain of learning the hard way, but is there any go-to resource like books or individuals that you lean on to kind of help you frame that mindset?
I have books. I don't read. I do what I do because I learn from people, and because I'm so curious about people that I literally pull business lessons that way, and I pull mentors that way. I put myself in a position to get what I wanted from the people I wanted it from, and it's working out well. So to answer your question, it's whoever I haven't talked to yet. I mean, it's like, it's Ed Milet, it's Tom Bilyeu, these people who I'm going to interview at some point, it's Jimmy Fallon, like literally just people like that. Now let's just scale back to if I wasn't doing what I was doing. It's really hard on the outside. I do believe this, that we do have to, no matter how much we support each other, and no matter how much you support people with this podcast, or I try to with mine, that you absolutely need to seek out some of the people in the world who are not veterans, who've never served a day in uniform, and who are exceptional. You are going to learn just as much from them as some of the best leaders that you've ever had. And you might actually start to develop a little bit more kind of empathy for the leadership, the weaker leaders that you've come across. So that's a big one. And then as far as like a true person, I mean, this, but Gary Vee, I mean, I don't even know why I had a business coach. Like I could literally just go freaking, drink 3 espressos tonight and just watch a bunch of his content, and I'll be exactly where I need to be with my North Star. What drives me and what helps me seek out leaders is people who are just unflinchingly honest, people who are able and willing to show the business from the inside out, and people who don't just, make videos and posture that the business is great and that they have a lot of money and that they did something ridiculous. Like I cannot stand the posts on LinkedIn where it's like, the interviewee showed up 1 hour late, but we still gave them the interview. Like, oh, wow. Yeah. Oh, wow.
You're so noble.
Oh, yes. Like, oh God, can you please, like, no, man, like, let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. That is what I seek out, and that is what I get from the people that I interview. I mean, people who are just, like I said, unflinchingly honest. I think that's just the 2 words that I think of the most, and because that's how I want to be, and that's how I wasn't for so long. And I realized, like, oh man, my life could have been different, but it's good now.
So let's dig into that a little bit, because I think that there's so much meat on that bone. And one of the primary issues when I'm talking with veterans who are out and they feel like they're stuck in what I've now started to refer to as transition purgatory, where you feel like you're just completely stuck in all aspects, is that there is so much bad advice coming from well-intentioned people surrounding the community. How do you detect the bullshitters of the crowd?
It's the people. Remember how we talked about features and effects? Like, it's the people who, look, man, this is a great story. I was at the Richmond Zoo or something, like probably like a year ago. We're there, or sometime in the spring, and we're in line for this shitty horse ride that my daughter was going to get on. And there's this dude, and he was a Marine. He was wearing this Marine hat. And he ran into a friend at the zoo. I'm like, okay. So there I am. And I was like literally going to be like, hey, what's up, guys? Just like, but I was holding my daughter. Like, I was just kind of like listening. And this guy said, yeah, I just got promoted at I think he's a GS, and he's like, yeah, now I'm going to be doing this. He's like, so I get to stay in Quantico. He's like, I get to collect a check. He's like, easy day. Like, that is a bullshitter, because that dude, no matter how happy you think he is because he gets to be lazy as fuck and collect a paycheck, like there's something else wrong, right? Like there's something else wrong. Like, I don't want to do that. Are you trying to tell people to just like, hey man, get on the treadmill and just, like next thing you know, like life will be over and you'll be like, cool, I didn't have to do too much. Like that's the opposite of what a lot of us feel. So the people who talk about the comfort of their job are probably, and then who really kind of lean on the benefits and the travel and the car or the money, I have found are really just filling their bag full of shit. It's literally like going on a hike with, everything but the gear that you need. So I think the people who talk to you about the reality, who talk about the struggle, who talk about, I've been in 3 jobs in 3 years, bro. That's who you want to fucking talk to. Not because they're going to talk poorly about those job experiences, but they're so close to it. They're going to be able to tell you, like, you might feel this. You might think this is a good opportunity, but you know what? I didn't realize until I started, but sales is way harder than I thought. And I get taxed way worse than if it was whatever. And the base was absolute dog shit.
Yeah.
That helps someone. That actually helps, man. That's not complaining, man. That's matter of fact. So I think that's really important. The other thing I think I've come to realize is people may disagree, but I don't care. Like people who've been at the same job for a while, I'm almost skeptical of them because they know they're not going anywhere. They've done really well there. Things are good. Like they could say, woo, I got out of the Marine Corps, after 8 years, and I've been with this company for 20 years. Like life is good. Yes, life might be good. They may have vacations galore, awesome house, perfect family, and everything's good. But like the landscape of jobs and occupations and industries is changing so much, so rapidly that those people are not probably going to be able to give you the advice you're going to need as someone getting out of the military today. I mean, like, I think Elon Musk's or someone posted something about like 50% of the jobs we need don't even exist, something like that, right? So like there's just evolving natures to all this stuff. And I don't want veterans to think that job jumping is a bad thing. Like you were going to figure out what you want to do, and you should just not stop until you figure that out. And don't think that it makes you unhireable. Like literally, like I said, it's like NFL to the NBA. It's like, okay, this is a transition for me. I thought I wanted to do this. This absolutely fucking sucks. I'm out. And then just go figure it out. But the people who have the staying power, I mean, that does say a lot about them, right? That they've been able to stay with the same place for that amount of time, but they're not going to be able to relate to you the way you need someone to relate to you. And I think that's unbelievably important.
Yeah, I see that a lot in the mentorship realm. You get a lot of volunteers working for volunteer organizations, and they want to give back their time because they want to help you, but it's like, well, that's great, dude. I didn't ask for a ham sandwich,
Yeah, 100%.
That took me off point. So talk to me then, because you have been avid about going after people. And before we started the show, I was talking about how I found you, because I'm the watcher. That's the way I think about myself. I'm picking apart what everybody's doing in this space.
Yeah.
And I see your video of you hunting down Gary Vee. And then next thing you know, I'm assuming in VaynerMedia offices is where part of that was. Tell me about that.
So why not ask? I mean, why not ask? Like, I don't really know what to say. Now, don't get me wrong. That took a lot of work. And I'm very, very good friends with pretty much the number 2 at VaynerMedia, Claude Silver, but she didn't help facilitate that at all. She's made it really clear at the beginning of our friendship that she's not willing to just kind of do that. She doesn't even get the time with him that she wants.
Yeah.
But that being said, when it comes to people like him, and when it comes to the people that I will interview in the future, look, like, I just don't pull any punches. I don't really try and craft this beautiful email that they're not going to read. Like, the longer, the worse. I just try and have, literally, I'll tell you the hack. I try and have a good subject line. Marine aviator interviews media mogul. You know what I mean? Like, retired or retired Marine interviews marketing guru. I don't fucking know, man. Like, whatever it is, like something that just gets them to open it. That's number 1. Number 2 is, and this is a perfect example. I'm here in Wilmington, North Carolina. I started Instagramming, following everyone on Instagram who, because real estate's big around here. So I started following a couple people and whatever. And then I reached out to this one real estate agent. I'm like, hey, new to the area. I saw your real estate team's, Instagram, and I noticed you guys aren't on LinkedIn. I was like, is there a reason you guys don't use video? Like, I was really trying to be conversational about it. She goes, I don't know. You'd have to talk to my team leader. And then I'm like, oh, can you make an introduction? And she's like, no. She's like, you have to do your research and go through the appropriate channels and whatever. I'm like, and I just wrote back, that's not true. Like, no, I fucking don't. And at that moment, me, the asshole Marine, was just like, you real estate agent, I'm going to fucking end up probably doing work with your boss. And then I'll be like, hey, I'm like that type of dude. I have like this weird vindictiveness. Like, we don't hook it up. But anyway, the point is this, man, like, there's no real gatekeepers. There's no real rules anymore. You just do it. And then, like, here's the real thing. Like, David Goggins, right? Like, I've been approaching them for a while, and I'm now I'm now definitely in a place where that interview is going to happen. But I mean, it took a lot of like, dude, he's speaking. I'm like, can I run with him? Like, no, you can't run with him. Like, he doesn't have time for that. Like, I'll go to wherever he is. I just make it to the point where I'm trying to be pleasantly persistent. And I really, really try and show that I don't take it personal. And I just say, I completely understand and respect that. Like, I'll come back in a couple months. But anyway, what if you're not an entrepreneur, and what if you don't need to do those kinds of things? What if you're in a traditional job role or seeking a traditional job role? Look, just ask. Like, there's 7 billion people on the planet. It's just like, like, what you want and what you need is not just down to one person. So that's what I would say, man. Just don't be afraid to ask. And I know that sounds super generic, but it's literally like all that I do.
So breaking down then, because that real estate story is great, because here you are, you're in a place and you're understanding the market. How do you understand what market exists around you, and how do you peel that onion apart?
I'm glad you said that, because I wasn't doing it until now. Wilmington, I love it here. And I started looking around what excited me. I looked around at what the major industries were. I actually am going to the Wilmington Business Journal tomorrow, because I signed to do stuff with them, and I'm going to be giving 2 seminars at the big conference they're having next month. And I guarantee that's going to get me some good leads and at least visibility. But yeah, I mean, you just have to see what's important. I mean, like, you could literally just go on any website, or you could go on LinkedIn and see the people that you want to get to know, and just look up their industries. I mean, that's one thing. But how do I do it, to answer you a little bit more concretely, is I don't, man. Like, I'm guessing every next step. I think real estate's smart for me. But you know what I'm thinking more about? Politicians. All right. We said at the beginning of this, like, we don't really talk politics, and this isn't political per se, but let me tell you why POTUS has a fucking real fan base, because he is unflinchingly honest. People can look at that and be like, hell yeah. Like, that he is not on brand. You know what I mean? Like, for the expectation of the office in which he holds. So that is really, really important. So for me, I think, like, and I interviewed 15 congressmen and women and or 13 and then 2 senators at an event I was hired to conduct. And I was doing interviews. And before the interviews, they were super cool. Like, what's up, man? Blah, blah, blah. Or whatever. They're super chill. Then in the interview, they're a little bit more stiff.
Yeah.
After the interviews, they're like, dude, call me anytime, blah, blah, blah. Semper Fi, a bunch of them were Marines. And, it's just really funny. And I'm like, what you actually need is me in the car with you leaving here where we could just talk. And you could be like, today was a beep day. You know what I mean? Like, let people see that, man. Like, people want to relate to people like more than ever because everyone thinks we're super disconnected and whatever. We're actually more connected than ever, in my opinion. It's just the way you do it. So the more real something feels to people, the more connected you're going to be to those people. And that is why the president has an enormous following. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, look, man, he cannot help who he is. And that is probably his biggest gift.
Yeah. And that's what drove the market.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
So we're running down to the end of our time.
Yeah.
And I could talk about this type of stuff all day for sure.
No, man, I love it.
But if you had one concrete lesson for veterans, maybe people that haven't gotten out yet, that are staring down the barrel of it, or people who have gotten out recently and are like, oh shit, I'm on the wrong path.
Yep.
And I'm got to pull chocks. There's an aviator term for you.
Yeah.
What would that be?
It would be swallow your pride. And I don't mean settle for the worst job. I don't mean that. I mean, swallow your pride. And obviously, this is very Gary VaynerX, but I did it. And I didn't do it because he said it. I did it because I had a choice to make. And the concrete example that I want to give you is I quit that very lucrative job. I quit even though my financial advisor told me to stay. I quit even though I certainly could have got past my troubles and probably got promoted again and then again and whatever. Maybe had my own building someday. But what I realized was I was climbing a corporate ladder that I didn't want to climb, number one. But two is I still have a house in Austin, Texas, 5 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms. Texas-sized house, my wife and I always say. And that doesn't sound like a lot to some people, maybe. It's a lot to me because I got that job and I was making money and I felt like I didn't feel the gap between getting out and being able to be a supportive husband and then ultimately a supportive father. I could actually take care of everything. You know how proud I was to be like, you don't have to work. Like, I got retirement and this, and I got disability. So we are good. And look what it got me. Fucking nothing. So the lesson here, and to take the story further, is I quit probably before I got fired. I mean, I have no idea. And I was willing to put all of our shit in storage in Blackstone, Virginia, in this small town that no one wants to go to, and live in my in-laws' basement and be like, okay, like I have the opportunity to create something right now. I was 37 and then I turned 38 while I was living there. My family and I moved them out of a great house into a basement. And you know what? Like, that literally was a reinvention because I realized what I didn't need. I realized how much I actually needed to make. I absolutely had the time to think what I want to do, what makes me happy, and to kind of test and evaluate some things. When you're getting out, you're fucking freaking out, man, because you're like, I'm not going to get BAH anymore. Oh, I got to pay insurance. If you're not retired, I got to pay insurance. You fucking freak out. I get it. I promise you, I get it. But here's the thing, like, there's not really, the hourglass. If you are willing to kind of live below your means for a little while and figure things out. Because if you say, we're going to move back home, and some of your Marine friends will be like, you're going to do what? You're going to go back to Nebraska? Dude, we're in San Diego or whatever it is. And you give yourself that opportunity, I promise you, the benefits are going to outweigh everything you could possibly imagine in a couple of years to come, which leads me to a little bit more of an immediate point that I have to make. Everyone who thinks they double dip by double dipping, which means being on terminal and working at their next job, is a huge fucking mistake. Don't do that. You have to decompress. You have to decompress. You will never, ever get that terminal leave back again. You will never have the opportunity to spend 2 months in Europe if that's what the fuck you want to do again, because there's nowhere in the adult world that allows you to do that.
Yeah, I completely agree. I totally missed mine. I went straight into school, like terminal leave in school.
Yeah.
Trying to get the 4.0 because I thought that's what I was supposed to do.
Yeah, man.
Hey everyone, thanks again for listening to another episode of the Spotlight Podcast. And I just wanted to take a second to ask you who you think should be interviewed on the show. Who do you think is out there that's just absolutely crushing it that the veteran population needs to hear from? That's what we want to hear from you. Send us your suggestions to spotlight@thezenveteran.com. That's SPOTLIGHT @thezenveteran.com. Thanks again for listening.